You've just been in a crash. Your heart's pounding, cars are backed up, and you're trying to decide what to do next. In those first few minutes, even one wrong move can wreck your injury claim, potentially trigger criminal charges, or cost you thousands in unpaid medical bills. I'm Pablo Tamayo, a personal injury attorney here in Florida, and I've seen too many good cases fall apart because someone left the scene too early, said the wrong thing at the scene, or failed to timely seek medical evaluation for their injuries. In this video, I'll walk you through the 3 biggest mistakes people make right after an accident and how to avoid the legal and financial mess that comes with them. Because once you drive away, open your mouth, or wait too long to get evaluated, there's no rewind button, and the insurance company is already one step ahead. All right, so let's get into it. The first thing you absolutely must not do after a car accident in Florida is leave the scene, no matter how small the accident seems. Seriously, even if it's just a fender bender in a crowded public parking lot, you need to stop your car and exchange your basic information with the other driver. Now, let me tell you a quick story. Not too long ago, I had a client, we'll call him Mike, who tapped another car in rush hour traffic and barely scratched the other driver's bumper. The driver never even got out of his car and didn't seem interested in speaking with him. Although initially, Mike stopped and got out of his car, he figured there was no big deal and he got on with his day. Well, a few weeks later, Mike got hit with a letter from the police and the other driver's insurance company. Turns out the other driver filed the police report and also was claiming injuries. Now, Mike was looking at criminal charges for leaving the scene of an accident, plus a potential civil lawsuit. Now, here's why this is especially serious in Florida. Under Florida law, it is a criminal offense to leave the scene of any accident without exchanging basic information if the accident caused basic property damage or injury. So even if you think nobody's hurt and both cars are fine, you are required by law to stop and exchange information and render reasonable aid if there are any injuries that require it. Now, leaving the scene, even for a minor incident, can mean criminal charges that could cost you your license and even your freedom, losing your insurance coverage for the accident, and making it more difficult to claim for your own injuries or damages. So trust me, you don't want to face a judge who thinks you tried to run away from your responsibility. A judge or a jury, for that matter. It looks bad, it's hard to explain, and it can turn a minor accident into a huge legal headache. So even if you're scared or the other driver is being aggressive, stay calm, stay put. If you feel threatened, call 911, explain the situation, report the accident. But the bottom line, no matter how small the accident or how busy you are, do not leave without exchanging information. Pull over safely, check everyone involved, wait for the police if needed. Get everyone's information. Staying at the scene is your legal duty. Don't admit fault, even if you think you caused it. The second thing you must not do after a car accident in Florida is admit fault. Don't even say, "I'm sorry," at the scene. I can't say this enough. When you're involved in a crash, it's natural to feel upset, jumpy, or even guilty, especially if you think you might have had something to do with the accident. But let me be clear. Always be honest with the police. If you think the other driver was at fault, you can say that. If you're not sure, then just stick to the facts and never guess or blurt things out that can later hurt your case, like, "I'm so sorry, this was all my fault. I totally didn't see you." Let me walk you through a real situation. A woman named Teresa. She came to me after being rear-ended at a stoplight. She was in shock. The first thing she said to the other driver was something like, "I'm so sorry. I stopped so fast." She thought she was just being polite, but the reality is that she stopped fast in reaction to a vehicle in front of her that recklessly cut into her lane. And so later, the insurance company used her words against her, arguing that she caused the accident, even though the other driver hit her from behind and was driving too closely behind her. And Teresa's case ended up going to court with her own words, making things much more difficult in litigation. So here's what you need to know about Florida law. Florida is a comparative negligence state, which means fault can be shared between the parties involved in an accident. Even if you're only partially at fault, anything you say can be twisted by the insurance adjusters to reduce what you're paid or to deny your claim altogether. Guessing what happened can only come back to haunt you. Here's what you should do at the scene instead. Stick to the facts, exchange names, insurance information, and contact details. If the police are called and they ask what happened, give a simple, truthful description and do not speculate. It's always encouraged to be cool and collected, and it's perfectly fine to offer assistance to the other driver by asking if anyone is hurt or if they need help. That shows you care, but just don't speculate as to whose fault it was. So, Don't guess, don't apologize, and don't accept blame. Simply focus on safety, call for help if needed, and collect your evidence. You could be protecting thousands, sometimes tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in your claim. The third thing you must not do after a car accident in Florida is skip getting medical attention if you're injured. I see this mistake all the time, and it can ruin your ability to make any kind of claim, no matter how real and significant your injuries are. Let's talk about why this is so important. Florida law has a specific rule about this called the 14-day rule. If you don't get medical attention within 14 days of your accident, you can lose your right to use your personal injury protection, PIP coverage. That's the insurance that's supposed to cover your medical bills up to $10,000, even if you were not, or even if you were at fault. And so here's what happens more often than you'd think. People get in a crash, maybe feel a little sore or shaken, but they convince themselves that they're fine, or they're just focused on getting to where they were driving to that day. Like everyday life stuff. And so they skip the ER, they skip going to the doctor, they go home, they rest. A few days later, the pain gets worse, their neck, back, headaches, even numbness in their arms or legs. And they figure it'll just go away, but it gets worse. And 2 weeks later, they may see a doctor, and by then, their PIP benefits are gone, and their insurance company is suspicious about the delay. And so here's an example in the real world. James rear-ended another driver on US 1, and he walked away feeling pretty much okay. He was worried about hospital bills, and so he waited for any treatment. And then 10 days later, his back pain was so bad he could barely get out of bed. And so he finally went to the urgent care. The insurance company argued his injuries might have come from something else, and since he barely made the 14-day window, he had to fight to get his medical bills paid through his PIP. And so even if you feel fine right after the crash, adrenaline can hide injuries like whiplash, concussions, muscle tears, or even internal bleeding sometimes. Some symptoms take days or even weeks to show up. If you don't get checked out by a doctor right away, or at the very least within a couple of days, you're putting your health and your case potentially at risk. So medical records are some of the strongest pieces of evidence you have in a personal injury claim. If you don't see a doctor and there's no record, the insurance company will argue you weren't really hurt. They'll say, if you were injured, why did you go to the doctor? And that can cost you thousands in medical expenses, therapy treatments, or even lost wages. In Florida, your own insurance, your PIP, should cover 80% of your medical expenses up to $10,000, regardless of fault, as long as you get that care within 14 days. That's money you could miss out on just by not going to an urgent care or primary doctor to evaluate your injuries when you feel pain after an accident. Even if the paramedics at the scene clear you, follow up with your own doctor as soon as possible. Describe every ache, pain, bruise, or weird feeling that you had, no matter how small. Get checked out and keep all of your medical records. If things get worse, don't wait. Get follow-up care as needed. So let's quickly sum up the 3 things you absolutely must not do after a car accident in Florida. Number 1, do not leave the scene. Stay put, exchange information, and wait for the police if needed. Even for a small fender bender, leaving without exchanging info can be a crime and can destroy your case if you don't get the driver's insurance info and give them yours. Number 2, don't admit fault, don't apologize, or guess what caused the accident. Keep your statements factual and let the professionals do their jobs. Number 3, don't skip medical attention. Even if you don't think your injuries are catastrophic, see a doctor right away within 14 days to protect your health and your rights to compensation. Every single one of these mistakes is easy to make if you don't know better, especially when you're shaken up and not thinking clearly after an accident. But avoiding them can make the difference between a quick recovery and a long, stressful, drawn-out legal battle in Florida. If you have any doubts about what to do after an accident, reach out to a professional, preferably a Florida personal injury attorney who handles these situations every day. If you're ready for the next step, watch this before you file a claim. You just learned what not to do after a car accident in Florida. But what if you don't have a police report for your accident? Can you still file a claim? That's a question I hear all the time, and the answer might surprise you. In our next video, can you file a car accident claim without a police report? I'll explain exactly what you need to know to keep your rights protected, even if you miss that critical step at the scene. Trust me, you don't want to miss this if you're serious about making sure you get what you deserve. Click over to the next video and get all the facts you need before you talk to any insurance company. I'll see you over there.